Everybody. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this to relive the set design and talk about the museum. So I'll share my screen now and try to get everybody to see the slideshow. Okay, are we there? All right. So I am Casey. I am a new member of the Wharton Esherick Museum staff. Been here a little over a year and a half now. So I'll talk about my background, sort of my education, how I sort of came to the museum, and then I'll go through some of my tree work lifestyle, and then we'll dive right into the set and look at some fun projects from start to finish. Okay, so I went to Juniata College in central Pennsylvania, and I have a degree in communication and marketing. Believe it or not, those who know me will find that surprising. So upon graduating college, I went right into the arts, tried to pursue the dream. I moved to New York City and studied improv and sketch comedy at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater for 3 years. I was an intern for 2 of those years and had a really fun chapter performing and studying comedy. But from that chapter, I got really back into rock climbing. My brother and I grew up climbing, so that was a huge part of my lifestyle. And it started really taking over my passions. I really just wanted to be climbing and exploring that avenue of the world. So from New York, I became pretty much a hippie rock climber in my 20s. Didn't seek the career yet, just sort of traveled all over the US climbing and having fun with that, and realized that it was such a passion. I wanted to find a career in rope work or harness work. That was sort of what I wanted to land on for my professional outlook. So I started interviewing at bridge companies for bridge inspection, windmill turbine repair. I had a lot of different weird almost gigs, and I landed on tree work. I got swept up by a company called the Tree Man out in Schwanksville and studied tree work under Fraser Lay. He knew I could climb, but I had no idea of how to even properly start a chainsaw back then. So I was very green around the edges, and I got hired as a contract climber, sort of an industrial tree climber. And I lived in a hotel for many years all over the East Coast, just doing really gnarly, really exciting tree work for Baltimore Gas and Electric, mixing stations for petroleum lines, amusement parks that were active, highway on-ramp. So I really learned from some of the best tree guys, and still to this day, haven't really seen a lot of the tree guys that were comparable to the people I learned from. So I was very, very lucky in that sense. Pushing age 30, I wanted to start my own company. I was getting into furniture. I was already influenced by the Esherick Museum, so I wanted to have my own sort of own gig and build more furniture and stay more local to where I grew up. So this is a picture of my dog, Ike, with me and a log. So Tree Wolf, the company, was inspired by my pup, and that was the inspiration for the logo. So I started doing tree work full-time right here in Phoenixville. So exposure to the museum happened at a very young age. I grew up right down the street from the Esherick site. So I lived next to a horse farm and a golf course right down the hill. And my parents took me here when I was a little boy. I do not remember the first visit, but I was told my brother and I were trying to climb the stairwell on the back side and got swiftly asked to stop doing that, which makes a lot of sense. We were little monkeys trying to climb everything. And Esherick's, I'm sure we thought it was the coolest house we've ever seen. And it wasn't until my 20s I really remember the impact it had on me. I truly was permanently rewired after visiting the museum. I had the classic existential meltdown where I left the property thinking, being struck by the beauty, all of the output, all of the attention to detail. So I really started renegotiating my day-to-day after being inspired by Esherick's work in my 20s. And I sort of hopped in before staff, before I got a gig as a caretaker and weekend supervisor. I was doing tree work for the museum. Julie and Andy had me consult and bid on some of the gigs. And so I would come in at any price under these huge companies just so I could work my butt off and try to get involved with the museum. I have some fun clips here of some of the gigs we carried out. So this is a video of some rigging next to the boardwalk. We did a big protection operation, taking down about 12 to 15 trees along with Chris Rader's crane company, in a hopes to protect the buildings within distance of these trees that were decaying. So that was some rigging there, bringing logs down. Right outside of the barn, which I'm currently living in, we were doing some work before I even knew I'd be on staff there or potentially live here one day. We were doing some logging and sort of felling right behind that 1840s pole barn, which was Esherick's first painting studio. Are these videos playing? Okay. So that hillside was really fun to work, real technical. We had to get pretty crafty with our rigging. So we would pull logs in with Jeeps and machines and roll them down the hill. And from there, we would prep them for milling. So this is us getting some of these logs pulled up the hill and then back down the hill, which is fun to see. So this is all oak that we recently have milled. And so once I started my own company, before I even got into real fine furniture or fine woodworking, I went on a milling spree. I loved lumber. I was seeing all the beauty in these logs that I was working. It started really changing my whole dynamic with my day-to-day flow. I would protect some of these logs from getting thrown through the chipper because I did not want to see them get wasted. I started milling as many different styles of wood as I could, and in the very crude fashion of chainsaw milling with an Alaskan mill. So this is a very labor-intensive, obnoxiously loud, slow, and painful process. But as an excited 20-something kid, I was so thrilled. I didn't care. I was milling as much as I could. Here's a drone shot my friend Kevin took of us milling some of his logs. This is a maple log. Some of this exact spalted maple was used for the set design, which we'll go into later. But you're basically just creating a ladder rig or some flat plane, running the chainsaw through, and then from there you can change the depths of size. You can quarter saw, rift saw, plane saw, whatever you need. It's all possible with just a chainsaw. So would have loved to have a bandsaw mill back then, but I didn't. So we just sort of roughed it and got a bunch of really beautiful material. So I have a lot of local hardwoods and softwoods from the hillsides right around this area. This is some oak that was milled in Pottstown. And I just wanted to show these stickers just for fun, to show the milling process. I wound up every week, I'd be coming home from different East Coast gigs in these hotels. I would stop in Landenberg and buy these poplar slats from this farmer. So these little grooves here have like almost like a French baguette cut belly groove in it, which helps air flow underneath as you're stickering and drying your lumber. That helps eliminate shadow spotting. And then we ratchet strap and tighten those logs as they dry. And you need to check on them every couple months. They always shift and morph, so you have to keep tensioning those cables. And as I got more involved with milling, I would inventory all the logs. So date of harvest, I'd have an inventory number, dimensions it was cut, potential projects or sort of intended tables or shelves that it would be for. All the dimensions were already inventoried for stock. And here's a picture of Kevin with the chainsaw mill. This is right in Phoenixville, right down the hill. And this spalted maple log has gifted us with a lot of material for a bunch of projects we've done, not only for the set, but for a lot of local clients and custom commissions. Angelo from Bridgeside Deli in Phoenixville is a Greek rad human who loves art. He's a painter, a wood carver. He helped me mill a ton of logs at the Sabia's house. And on the right side, those sort of splayed off wide boards were used in the set build. So I'll go into that a little later as well. Beautiful black walnut that was storm damaged. So that fell, and we got a phone call and we jumped right on that opportunity. Here's a dusty picture of me with just to show you a bit of a insight into how much sawdust you breathe in with this Alaskan chainsaw milling. My brother Ryan, who is on the right next to some white oak that we milled. Ryan moved home from South Dakota and wound up diving in and helping me run my tree company for years. He became a really skilled sawyer, professional rope expert, and I could not have ran that company without him. So we really bonded, reconnected from years apart, and we were running a tree company together and milling all over sort of the different areas locally. I had to put some cute pictures of my dog, the real tree wolf here. Ike grew up in sawdust. He loves it. He is a very funny pup. He hates the shop vac or any vacuum cleaner. He'll lose his mind. But if he's next to chainsaws or loud trees thumping or big wood chippers, he's absolutely fine. He's used to it. But he really doesn't like a vacuum, which is, I don't know. I don't like the vacuum either, to be honest with you. More black walnut. And here on the right are these pieces that we used from my inventory for Martha's set. Really, really fun builds. I love that wide sort of crotch system there that splays out. So meeting Martha. So I am now just under a year of working at the museum. And this was my first personal experience seeing an artist in residency start to finish. And from what I understand, Martha was the first performing artist, sort of performance-based artist in residence we had. So this was very exciting. I'll never forget meeting her. As the caretaker who's living on site, one of my roles was just to make sure I was on call, make sure she had everything she needed. We were hosting her here for several days at a time while she really studied the history of the place, tapped into the spirit of the hillside here. So the first night that she stayed, we wound up catching up, getting to know each other. We talked about art and surfing and music and family. And throughout that conversation, she expressed her design choices and what her dreams were for this set build that she was going for her performance piece, which was very hyper-focused on the late 20s and early 30s Esherick set design and furniture output during those particular chapters. Very prismatic, very sort of expressionist and Steiner based. So her dances that she was doing were also influenced by some of those concepts. So when she was talking about this so excitedly, that night I found some scrap wood, just threw together a piece that might work for the set, not even expecting to be a part of the whole operation, but just out of excitement and for fun. I threw together this beech plywood, off-centered sort of prismatic riff on Esherick's Hedgerow Theater set. And that next morning, Martha came up. She was so excited. Long story short, she asked me to collaborate and help and be on board with the set build. And I completely lost my mind. I could not believe it. I was so excited. So the first person I called in excitement was Dana Meyer, who is a local to the hillside. She grew up even closer to the museum. Her family is right down the road. She's a fabrics designer, a professional textile artist who I had met in the summer, about 6 months before meeting Martha. So we were already riffing and collaborating and making a lot of different fun things for the barn apartment that I'm living in. She sewed up and fabricated some of the tea towels we sell in the visitor center. We made some curtains, which were the original intention of those prints for the bathroom, put in a fireplace and have some leather work from Dana there. So we were already in the barn on the Esherick site creating art. On the right here, we have some textile, some cross stitches with some frames that I've built that will be available in the visitor center someday in 2024. So after getting the gig with Martha, I said, Dana, you have to meet Martha. You're gonna dig her. You guys have so much in common. She's here for 3 days. Please come by. We'll have a dinner and hang out. Martha was extremely interested to meet Dana. And when they hit it off, it was just such synergy. It turned into me just sort of like pouring wine and feeding the fire and making sure, Ike was okay. And they were just hitting it off with discussions of previous costume builds they both have done. Dana's coat she did in her grad program. So long story short, Dana gets invited as well from Martha to do the costume design and collaboration. And so we created this fun triforce of expression and really had fun creating this world for this performance that was sets and costumes, along with Miriam and Brooke, the two talented musicians who Martha roped into the mix as well. So for this set, this was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. So I really pushed myself into the unknown of these really triangulated types of German expressionism. And so this Fischer desk here that I put on this slide really struck Martha. She really gravitated towards this beautiful triangulated prism. And it has 3 doors that open up sort of discreetly. It's hard to see how it would even open, but there's these beautiful 3 hinged doors on this prism here. So Martha wanted to house a cape for one of the dances that had 3 sort of Fischer type of triangulated doors. So we started diving in right away. I must have built this prism 4 or 5 times out of particle board. These are all little pieces of scrap particle board. Here's the intro designs of the doors. We wanted to emanate and really get that same Fischer feel, but we didn't want to rip off the same type of dimensions. As opposed to a corner desk, we went with a 20-degree splay in the back, which hides some electrical components. So it's a little different. Here is the door in process, sort of getting that really beautiful cherry. And to tap in not only to the Esherick-Inspired design, we really tapped into the process as well. We reused as much material that was laying around as possible. We repurposed items and wood that was from the museum that we were not using anymore. And this particular cherry ply that I had was intended for a bed build, but we decided to use it for this prism. So I only had 1 piece of plywood, and we had to really try to dial this in because it's all I had at the moment. So it felt a little like Mission Impossible at first. It was very daunting, but it started becoming a very fun process once it started coming together. So here are the doors. In the kitchen, I constantly, just like Martha did, I had things tacked to the wall, things to keep looking at, to reference and get inspired. So now we have doors are starting to form, and you can see instead of just the Fischer desk feel, we carved this really fun triangulated hand pull, which creates a handle easy for Martha to open. There's a little thumb catch with a sort of Esherick-y carved triangle, a very sculptural hand unit there out of black walnut. All three triangles are on every side of the piece to sort of emanate that same Fischer feel. On the right, you can see it's starting to take shape, starting to come together. 2 hinges are on. Getting all those hinges to fit properly was quite a task. I wish that John Schmidt and Esherick were around to help guide me. I felt very, very sort of alone in the dark for a while, but it was a great learning process. Very, very fun. So here is a video of the Fischer opening. So we put a light system in there with a antique car door bulb. So when you open it, it lights up, very Esherick-y in that sense. Martha wanted to have sort of a light component in there just for fun. So my friend Albert Alfonsi came over and helped to rig that. So Albert is a local master electrician on the hillside. I grew up with his son, Austin, and I roped him in to help me rig this professionally. We put a transformer on the back to convert it to 12 volts, so we weren't going to blow any fuses in the workshop during the day of the performance. So he decided to drive over in his 1913 Chevy that he repurposed. He got out of the car with 2 bottles of wine that he made in the basement, one for me, one for Dana. And it felt so Esherick-y in the sense that we were collaborating. He and I bartered, so there was no money involved. I did some woodworking for him for a kitchen that he was working on. He did the wiring free of charge, gifted us with wine. So we really were, reigniting that spark of working with locals from the hillside and collaborating right down the street here. And that farmhouse, the original 1840s farmhouse with that car there. I had to take a picture on his way out because I thought it was so cool. So we did a lot of sculptural elements for the set as well. So I put a little carving tent up because it was quite hot out. And all this maple was from my previous tree work gigs. I love working with spalted maple. I think it's such a beautiful, intricate look. The grain is exceptional. So we really went with this sort of German expressionist inspired sort of Caligari-esque odd shapes. Everything is off center, nothing is right angled. We really tried to impart that sort of odd, otherworldly feel and create this prismatic landscape. Here is Ike sleeping peacefully while I am stressing about building more prisms because it was a very fun learning experience. I was really struggling to dial it in until probably weeks in. So we have some scrap from the Fischer cabinet that we created that was used for these fun other sort of three-dimensional prisms. On the right here, you can see the set is starting to come to fruition. We have all sorts of different plywood shapes mixed with sculptural maple elements. So those pieces of black walnut I showed you early in the slides, these were, I was yearning for an excuse to put these into some sort of action. So for the set, they were perfect. Martha really sort of struck a nice chord with these pieces. So we made them very triangulated, carved some triangles into the base. It's got that Steiner sort of earth force to sun force sort of tapering off and thinning out as it gets higher. And these are about 12 to 14 feet high. So they look unassuming here, but they were quite fun to carve. And we charred them. So we took torches and we did that Shao Sugiban sort of Japanese inspired charring, which gave it a really fun dark contrast. After burning and charring, I re-sculpted them and really exposed some curves to kind of juxtapose those straight, hard, triangulated lines. Rediscovering that grain underneath sort of felt like a treasure hunt. So we had these fun sort of quirky pieces that wound up working well for the set as a backdrop. So this is a picture of the set sort of coming into its fullness here. A lot of different odd angled plywoods. Nothing is similar. Everything has a bit different of a feel to it. Martha had a lot of fun, hopefully, placing all these pieces around to her liking to really create this fun, funky world. Down in the front here, Larissa Huff, who was the one who introduced us, made these beautiful percussion instruments out of a Ray Kelso-inspired, odd-angled, beautiful black walnut boxes here. Dana's sort of one of her costumes is visible here, so we really had a lot of fun. And as you can see, there's all sorts of cool musical instruments all over the place. So the show was really rad, really different than anything I've been a part of before. Some close-ups here, some of the lighting. Martha went around and put some lights behind certain prisms. We were having fun casting shadows and having a lot of these sort of different darks and lights sort of popping all over the place and really jumping around and making some more shapes via shadows and light. So that was very fun. And here's Martha mid-performance doing one of her dances with a spiral staircase inspired sort of spirally costume. I got to see these being built. I got to test fit them in the barn, which was very fun. And really, I'd never seen anything so intricate and like this style of sewing and mending and creating these shapes. And there's a lot of similarities to woodworking and fabric design, which I discovered. So that was very fun. And last but not least, just for the cuteness factor, I'm going to show you a video of Ike pulling a tree limb because he is the tree wolf, and I just wanted to show that because I found it when I was looking through photos. I think it's adorable. So that is pretty much the set build, sort of how it all came to be. Please feel free to ask questions or interject if you'd like.
Casey, I'm going to start you off with a question before we open fully. So I think, at least from my perspective, not a lot of woodworkers or not all woodworkers have the background that you have working with trees, from the beginning and actually logging and milling them. What do you think, how does that change the way that you actually work with wood, having understood it from, its growth to taking it down and so forth?
It's a really special aspect of the work for me. I really enjoy that sort of farm to table, sort of full, start to finish process. As a tree guy, I love to tend to and prune trees and do beautiful upkeep. But when they need to come down, a lot of times it's it's either upsetting to a client or it's upsetting to us to have to take down these beautiful trees. So to be able to see the grain, mill it, dry it, wait patiently for years, it's a really patient process oriented experience. So I really do love every single aspect of the tree from start to finish. So by the time you're starting to craft or cut things to size, you've already created this relationship and rapport with the wood, and from climbing it to dropping it, you really have a sense of, you have memories related to it. You have an appreciation for the material that I think focuses you to sort of not just jump to conclusions, but really dial in what you'd like to do and how to honor that lumber and make it into something beautiful. So I'm lucky to have started off milling before even diving into any fine furniture. Most of my stuff was very crude until I had classes from Larissa and Rob Spees over at Lohr School of Woodworking. I really started to change the game and take all the material I had and put it into action. So it makes it quite fun.
I have a question, Casey. How has your the experience of working with sets, which I think was totally new, right? And working with Martha, has that changed your take on furniture design or interiors after having worked in this really kind of theatrical, kind of fantasy world kind of way?
It has. Yeah. I mean, I was really diving into the different literature we had here to try to look at pictures of sets that Esherick built. And I think that does transfer pretty gracefully to furniture design, especially with these different shapes. I had never built a set before, and I had never experienced that type of sort of stark triangulation. So now I'm starting to see furniture a lot differently. Sort of how can I incorporate prisms into this piece of furniture is definitely going to be on my radar, because before this, I didn't have exposure to it in the same sense and any type of understanding. So yeah, with the sets, it was so fun to create this sort of, alternate universe with these prisms. And I think it can be, Esherick showed us it's possible to sort of transfer that right into furniture design or make sculpture right into something that's functional. So it was quite an eye-opening experience for sure, if that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
What are you going to make next, Casey?
I have some commissions coming in. I have a door with Jeffrey Bruin, which I'm very excited about. I have a countertop for my friend Isaac Windle, the chimney guy that helped with the fireplace at Sunnycrest. Ethan is having me do a frame for him. I'm doing some custom frames for some really beautiful prints. An office I'm working on. I'll be doing some shelving and sort of desks as well. So there's a lot of fun projects on the horizon that I'm now very eager and excited and inspired to dive into. And who knows, they might all look like prisms after this.
That's awesome.
I don't have a question, but I'm just like, wow, Casey, you've had so many rich experiences, and to see that career come along and how it developed, as well as the set for Martha McDonald. But I've really, really enjoyed this.
Oh, thank you, Gay. That's so kind. That's so nice to hear. I've enjoyed it too. I'm still pinching myself, honestly. I never would have expected it to unfold this way, and it's been such a life-changing experience to be on site and working with lumber from the hill here and getting involved with this creative, expressive performance. So thank you for showing up today and for all your amazing work at the museum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you took me into the barn where you're living right now. And it's a broad question, but what's it like to be working in wood in a building that Esherick, had a huge part to play in? And I mean, that's just a unique life experience. What is that like just on a emotional or artistic level?
Yeah, it's very humbling. It's very inspiring. It's really changed my focus and my even my day-to-day process. I feel very fortunate, very lucky to be having this chapter in my life where I'm sort of walking the hill to work and sort of tapping into the spirit of the place here. And I'm still very fresh and very new here. So my eyes are peeled and my ears are perked. So the more I'm learning about Esherick, the more I'm learning about myself, and to be able to sort of rest my head in the barn and create some sawdust right outside of where he was carving and initially painting in the 20s. It's a otherworldly experience. I sometimes have to remind myself it's happening because it feels like a dream, to be honest with you. But it's definitely upped my excitement of woodworking, which I did not even know would be possible, but I feel very driven to sort of dive in, learn a lot. There's a lot of beautiful styles. I'm getting more into sculpture here, which is sort of a daunting thing for me, but I really enjoy that 3D sculptural element. So to answer your question, I'm just very, very excited and grateful to be here.
It's a great match that you're there, and you're black and blue because you're pinching yourself all the time.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's I need constant reminders.
Right.
I have a question.
Hello, Pauline.
Hi, Casey. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great. This has been wonderful, just fascinating. I do have a question for you. One of the things that I've noticed forever is that whenever people see beautiful woodworking, they're compelled. I think everybody is. You want to reach out and touch it. You want to touch it.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how the visual versus the tactile might inform your design work.
For sure. I think the elements Esherick instilled, he was such a heavy-handed sculptor. He was sculpture before he even got into furniture. So when you see Esherick's furniture, it's so inviting. It sort of draws you in like a moth to a light a little bit, where you just can't help but feel like interacting with the piece. And I think a lot of that is from his ability to see lines, to appreciate the grain, to have those curvilinear, soft, beautiful, almost perfect tapers. There's so many aspects of woodworking that you can sort of impart into the process or into the end result that makes it feel almost drawn to touch and drawn to experience and interact with. And I think Esherick pulled that off tenfold. And so, yeah, when creating furniture, I do think about how it looks and how it would feel. And that is, sanding can be boring, but it's so crucial to get things smooth and approachable, and it only enhances the beauty. So I think I've spent a lot more time on finish work since moving here and really experiencing the beautiful furniture that was pumped out of this place for years and years. So yeah, it's a fun thing. And I think to really dive into what beauty is in the tree already is crucial, to really, just kind of dance with it and accentuate as opposed to, shape it. I think you can really pull that off by exploring what's already there, sort of, tapping into that, almost that George Nakashima sense where he would just showcase and highlight the nature inside. And yeah, I think it's important.
Thank you.
And I haven't forgotten about your cherry tree, Pauline. I will.
I was going to text you right after this. And I'm still going to text you right after this.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we make a couple announcements? All right. So a recorded version of this talk can be found on YouTube if you want to rewatch Casey's incredible story. So look out for our YouTube page in the next couple of days to find that. If you didn't get a chance to see Martha McDonald's performance, The Wood is Singing in Color, an exhibition featuring some of the archival inspirations and costumes that Dana and her worked on will be on view in our visitor center until December 30th. Next month's spotlight will be on December 19th, and it's going to focus on Letty Esherick's bookplate. And finally, we are debuting a new storytelling tour with Holly and Jeffrey, which will be taking place on December 21st, and tickets are still available. So check out our website, it's under our programs page, and we're looking forward to, experiencing Esherick's studio and life through storytelling and the rich kind of collection of oral histories that we have on site.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you in December for the next Spotlight Talk. Thanks, Casey.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That was
Thank
so
you.
much
It's
fun.
been wonderful.